We're back with the news review. We'll be joined shortly by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's a political scientist and the director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. He'll be joining us shortly. But, of course, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. Now, here's where you can locate us. Here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Then, of course, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade and Aji State Tema Community 22, Techi Manhanswa and Esiama Enzima. The numbers to reach Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic on 0244-867-068. That is 0244-867-068. Or you can also reach them on 0274-234-321. 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review as we get into the latest from the newspapers. We have Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante connecting with us now. A very good morning, Doc. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Ben. Good morning.
I hope you're well.
Very well.
All right, let's get straight into the issues. But maybe before that, as I always do, we get to do this once a week. Any pertinent matters that you've cited, whether in the newspapers or beyond, that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, I want to look at the economic intelligence report and an aspect of it. Research is always important in whatever we do, because it provides the building blocks for future development. So without it, you cannot make any sound policy or statement or even a program if you don't have research. And I commend the economic intelligence over the years. They've churned out a number of reports that we have found very interesting and live up to expectation. This time around, they are predicting NDC winning the election, both presidential and parliamentary, and the rest of them. I must say that I've not gone to the field to also, as it were, ascertain for myself what really exists on the ground from my point of view. So I will not be in a position to, dwell so much on what they are saying. Because from where I sit, it is also important for people like us also to hit the ground and pick some information. But having said this, there is an aspect of their report which I find very interesting and is worth commenting here. If you look at that aspect of the report, which says that the NDC would need a fresh candidate, I don't seem to get that aspect. Why am I saying that? Because if you look at John Maham's performance last election, very amazing performance, incredible. Nobody thought that he would have performed that way, but he proved everybody wrong and performed creditably well, almost at winning the election. So I can understand why a report can point out that you need a fresh candidate to replace somebody who put up splendid performance last election. That would be naive on the part of the NDC, but definitely NDC is not a naive party. They are too experienced in politics and they will not want to make that mistake. It is true that the people are contesting with Mahama and the rest of them. My own former boss, Dr. Dufour, and then the other man. And they are distinguished people. Yes, Kojo Bonsu. These are distinguished people. Dr. Dufour, for instance, is a very distinguished person. He has served
former finance minister, former governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Yes, and he has set up businesses. And
exactly.
I must say here that I was working under him for his heritage newspaper. I was the editor. So you can imagine, I know him too close, all right? But he is a man who has record, he has lived, he has performed so well, he had a lot of businesses and the rest of them. Kojo Bonsu has also paid his dues and all that. But I must say that, yes, they are in for that contest, but Mahama lives way beyond them. Because if you look at this type of contest, you are going to elect a flag bearer who will represent the party for the national election. And one, you need records. Where are they going to get the records from? I mean, the two gentlemen. It should come from a particular government, or there are various time that they want power. And it will be on Rawlings' record, Mills's record, and Mohammed's records. So if you have worked in any of these governments, obviously you are going to depend on records of the three. And if one is around to compete with you, you cannot. So for the report to suggest that you need a fresh candidate, I ask myself, how, in terms of experience, this type of work, you need experience. And Mahama Apa, he's among the very best, if not the only well experienced in terms of politics. If you look at the offices he has occupied as an MP,
right,
as a minister, as a vice president, as a president, all right, he's coming with a wealth of experience that no contestant can match him with this. And the name of the game is also part of what? Experience is also part of the name of the game. And then you are talking about what? Your record. Mohammed's record is there, numerous, amazing. Then you come to also look at the fact that popularity is important because of what? The simple pass the post system, that you need just one vote to cross the finish line and win your opponent. And if you look at every home in this country, they know Mahama and the rest of them. So how do such a report who threw out this person and said, go for a fresh person? Is it the case that you just need a fresh person? I have this funny statement that I make, that if you are playing, a team is playing full of what? The Messis, the Ronaldos, and what have you, and you want a fresh person like Asah-Asante to come and join that football team. That's a joke. That's a joke. The real players are on the field. So that aspect of the report is a very interesting one. And I'm not sure that the NDC will accept that. Even the pundits and scholars like my good self, we disagree on that. And that's my position. But all in all, any important institutions such as economic intelligence group, whatever they churn out, it's worth looking at, and then work around it and also improve your lot if there is a need to do that. And it's not a report that you can jettison, but you can use it as what? A learning curve.
I also found the report interesting on that very point because, I mean, the NDC can choose to vote whichever way it will, but if you look at marketability, obviously, I mean, as students of politics, both of us, and it's interesting because it's a student to his teacher now, his lecturer, it is pretty clear. Unless something very curious happens, of course, but we'll see what happens, how the cookie crumbles on May the 13th. They also go on to talk about likely where our economy will end up in terms of the exchange rate, in terms of debt to GDP, among others. That's a conversation for another day. But let's spend just a minute on this. I found it interesting. JoyNews just posted on, I mean, it's been on our Facebook page. You can check it out and maybe give your response, those who are watching. But for you, Doc, this question was posed. What do you think is the number one cause of poverty in Ghana? Right before we get into the papers, I want your quick take on that. What is your reflection? What do you think is the number one cause of poverty in Ghana?
Lack of jobs.
Unemployment.
Unemployment, that's it. If I'm employed, and depending on my skills and my experience and ability, obviously I'll earn something. If not something that will, be too satisfactory for me, I'll be able to make ends meet. But if I have no job, I have nothing to start with. You lawyers will tell us that then you are putting something on nothing.
Well, and you can't build something on nothing. There must always be some basis at least. Well, let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Now, Ghana to become automobile hub of West Africa, President predicts, of course, that was as he actually launched that latest outfit. I'll be telling you a bit about that. And you would see some of them in town with "Assembled in Ghana" boldly written on them. Very good step, but when you think of the Mazin from way back and the Boafu and others that we actually put together, could we have been producing our own cars in the first place? No lease permit granted to small-scale mining companies to operate in any forest reserve. That's according to the Forestry Commission's CEO. We'll get into that story as well. Now, Galamsey fight. AG prosecutes 119 criminal cases nationwide, 727 persons involved since January 2021. This was a story we looked at yesterday. And a lot of the stories segueing into one another, because Forestry Commission CEO says there's Galamsey fight in there, and then OSP investigates Professor Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report. I just saw a tweet by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. On the back page, there's Gbese, British High Commission partner to clean Mensa Guinea beach. And I must just say this, Ghana, for many of our beaches are too dirty. These are for us, and not just for us, for generations yet unborn. Let's keep our beaches cleaner. They look too bad in many areas. Even the ones that we celebrate, I don't want to mention names, still look in some cases or in some areas filthy. I've been to countries where beaches are so neat, so pristine. In fact, you can look through turquoise water, a shade of blue, a shade of green. You can see almost to a certain depth in there. You can't say same for us, but it's doable. We can do it. Let's protect our natural resources. Nowadays, there's sand winning and people are using beach sand. Tomorrow, if the waves come, if there's some sort of tsunami, God forbid, and the same people are affected, they would cry. But they forgot that when they were eroding the beach, you are sand winning, you are taking beach sand and using it to make your blocks and all of that. What kind of thinking is that? Galamsey is destroying our land, our water. We're destroying everything. Sometimes I shudder about what Ghana would look like in 20, 30 years if we don't get a grip on some of these. But anyway, let's after the Ghanaian Times, I'll get to the Daily Graphic. So Ghana to become automobile hub of West Africa. That story is on page 13, Doc. And President Akufo-Addo yesterday inaugurated a newly established vehicle assembly plant of Rana Motors at Amasaman in the Gawes municipality with a pledge to introduce sector-specific initiatives to drive Ghana's industrial transformation. The facility, which occupies 13.5 hectares of land, is the largest among the 5 vehicle assembly plants operating in the country. Currently, the plant has an operational capacity of 30,000 cars annually, rising to 70,000 when operating at full capacity. Already, the president has said that the government had waived value-added tax on the sale of domestically assembled vehicles as a strategy to drive down cost and make it affordable. Then there is also this story. OSP investigates Professor Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor says it is investigating the report published by the head of the dissolved Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Professor Kwame Frimpong Boateng. According to the OSP, the investigation, which was ongoing and far-reaching, covered other issues pertaining to illegal mining. It has therefore assured the public and civil society that it will take necessary action against all persons deemed culpable of corruption and corruption-related offences in the mining sector. This was contained in a statement signed and released by the Special Prosecutor, Kisia Jabing, and copied to the Ghanaian Times in Accra yesterday. It's interesting, though, we're talking of the OSP, and we see there the picture of Mr. Godfred Yabu-Adame, who is the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. I don't know what happened at Ghanaian Times. And there's also no lease permit granted to small-scale mining companies to operate in any forest reserve. But that's interesting, the Forestry Commission CEO saying so. As you come in, Doc, reflect as well on the fact that the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, has been saying, the Frimpong Boateng report, there may be some elements that they can work with, and there may be aspects that they have to jettison and all of that. I personally don't think government has treated this report with the seriousness it deserves on the back of what it doesn't just point to Galamsey going on. It points to high-ranking people with their feet hands deep mired in Galamsey. Somehow anything against this administration is not the truth. It is not scripture, as Samuel Abu-Jinapor will put it. Do you feel this approach will do us any good in the fight against Galamsey? So you can reflect on the different stories we've looked at.
Never. And I share in your pain that a report like this, government want to throw it away. Any serious government, whatever information you chance upon can be thrown away. Let's use this thing for purposes of analysis. Imagine that the government, through its agents, has stumbled upon information that there is somebody, God forbid, you want to, temper with this republic. In other words, to cut short the republic. You stumble upon that information. Would you say that it has to be on office letterhead? It has to be written in a certain format before you act on it? It's a good intelligence to work with straight away. So when I hear this thing, it's laughable. Then this is what you, student of law, you call it as what? Substance over form, isn't it? Is it the substance we are looking at or the form we are looking at? I mean, you can't get it. Any information that is worth, looking for or using, you use it. The lawyers will tell you that even if you need to steal that information because it's useful, why not? Why not? And this one has come to you not from any other person, but an appointed person, experienced person that the president put in charge of this same menace, and is churning out a report, and you want to throw it away. I'm sorry. You don't work like that in government. Every report counts, and then you look at it. Consider all as allegation. That is to be fair to all those who have been mentioned in the report, and then trigger an investigation to give them a day to hear the other side of the story. And that's all. And then you can take it from there. But to dismiss it as that an aspect that you want to look at and the rest you can throw away, for me, that shows that you are not serious at all.
But shouldn't be any surprise, Doc? After all, this administration sat on this report for 2 years.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. If you look at what you have said, added to the fact that the government pusher over the years, which I have lamented about and continue to lament about, is that all that they want is praises. But nobody governs with praises all the time because life is not made in such a fashion. There are always difficult times. All that you need to do is admit and then begin to take important steps. But if you miss any of this, I'm afraid there's nothing good that will come out. But there's a cost to it. The cost is that the power that you are hanging on to, when the time comes for renewal of your mandate, those who have the power to renew or otherwise, I will make a decision that will not be in your favor. So I think that this will serve as a guide for them going forward, that you don't govern like that at all. Any information worth its salt must be brought into the decks and then look at critical. That's why we pay officers to look for intelligence. That's why we pay officers to get information to help in governance, right? So what are we talking about? This information has come to you. Trigger an investigation, get into it, see, let an independent body look at it, and they will advise accordingly. But for you to throw it away, I'm afraid that's not the best.
Let's take a look at the Daily Graphic now. That front page, it says, President commissions Kia assembly plant. Parliament approves $750 million in terms of financing agreements. And there is this one, jail Asah-Asante. Of course, the Asah-Asante being referred to here is the one tied to the banking system. I believe it is Capital Bank. And that is the story there. There is also Galamsey wipes out 4,700 hectares. 34 forest reserves affected. Cabinet sanctions special military crackdown. Yet, we're being told no lease or permits have been granted to small-scale mining companies to operate in any forest reserves. That's the Forestry Commission's CEO. But Galamsey has wiped out 4,700 hectares, and 34 forest reserves have been affected. Forest reserves. I'm not talking of just forest reserves. And Cabinet has sanctioned special military crackdown. I don't know, Doc. I really don't know. This whole bit about getting the military involved and doing this and doing that, it has not worked. It hasn't. In fact, when you read the Professor Frimpong-Boateng report, it also alludes to the fact that that was what, in doing this, sometimes they end up, I don't know the full details of that, maybe even giving some support to people who may be engaged in Galamsey or the powers that be who may be involved in Galamsey. And that, allegedly, according to Prof, was how we even lost Major Mahama. So I'm just thinking about it. It has not worked on any front. We keep pumping money into this venture. The situation keeps getting worse. You just saw it. Galamsey wiping out 4,700 hectares. We're talking of another military crackdown and all of that. You come today, of course, sometimes the service people who go themselves are compromised. Sometimes, as we know now, there are people in establishment, people who walk the corridors of power, who are in it. So it's a futile attempt. And sometimes for the genuine ones, they go and the Galamseyers will run away. When they leave, the Galamseyers will come back. So this one, we go or we come. I don't know, Doc.
Ben, you have said it all. I have said it time and again that this fight, the state is not ready to fight. It's a very simple matter. Because from all indications, it is clear that the government doesn't want to fight it. Because there's a government, of course, legitimate government, giving all the powers to deal with such menace. I.e., you are in control of the coercive apparatus of the state. You are in control of what the legal regime, in the sense that you make laws and you enforce laws. Why can't you enforce them? All right. Why can't you enforce them? It means that there is something more to it. Because if the government is serious about fighting this, they will fight it head on. But what we are saying is just to tell the public that, yes, we have heard you, we are doing something, but they themselves don't believe in what they are doing. Because if you believe in what you are doing, right, you will put people who are, will be free to work. I saw a clip, a video on your screen, Joy screens, where they went to one of the areas and then found a structure there and military uniforms were there. I mean, if you listen to the comment, that they were like protecting the Galamseyers. So why would you want to deceive the public into believing that you are doing something meaningful? Only to go there and you realize that they are protecting the people are working every day. And these things happen in places, all the places that happen, we have, if we don't have what, MCE, you have what, DCE. We have the police, we have the national security, we have the BNR, all going on. Is it the case that these actors are not doing their work? And I'm not holding brief for them. I will speak for them. They will do their work. For the security people, I have been so close because of my engagement with Ghana Armed Forces staff and Command College and all that. I've learned a few things. They are always everywhere and they work on time. But as to who is implementing what, the report that they churn out, that is the problem. And that is a political decision. Right. So for me, I will blame it on the politicians. They don't want to fight us. Because for BNI, they will churn in their report. For the security, they go and carry out instructions given to them by the command model and the rest of them. But as to the political will to fight it, so then it also gives you an inkling as to whether government really want to fight the battle or not. But for me, all points to the fact that the government doesn't want to fight it, period.
Let's look at the Daily Guide newspaper and some interesting stories there. Medical replies, Eno Baroni is there. I found that interesting. There's a story that says Davido dropped some laughing emojis under Medical's diss. Of course, it's interesting how it's playing out, Eno Baroni and Medical, if you're interested. Now, Tiwa Savage to perform at King Charles III's coronation concert, and the Nigerians keep flying high when it comes to some of these. But then, other stories. We're talking about Parliament approving those 6 loans to the tune of over $700 million, borrowing left, right, center. There's also science labs improve STEM education, and Lassa fever outbreak over, that's according to the Ghana Health Service. Let me just focus on these 2 stories very quickly. Minister of Education, Dr. Yawase Educhum, has stated that the government has equipped senior high schools across the country with cutting-edge science laboratories to encourage the study of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. According to him, the science labs are expected to provide the students with practical knowledge of the subject. Speaking during an inspection of educational projects in the Ashanti region, the minister stated that the government, led by President Akufo-Addo, would continue to create access for more Ghanaian children to enjoy free education and urged beneficiaries of the free SHS to take advantage of the opportunity. He admonished them to earn good marks in order to make the huge investments made in their education worthwhile. And that is the story there. Of course, we'll do all these stories and promote what the education minister says. But then when you speak to the negatives in the system, then they will say some station showed some documentary. Anyway, sent Asah-Asante to prison. The Attorney General, Godfrey Adame, has filed an application before an Accra High Court urging it to send founder and former CEO of defunct Capital Bank, William Asah-Asante, to prison for failing to pay 20 million Ghana cedis as part of an agreement which kept him out of jail. Mr. Asah-Asante was standing trial for stealing from the 620 million Ghana cedi liquidity support given to the struggling bank in 2015, which led to its insolvency and subsequent collapse, but managed to stay out of prison after reaching an agreement with the Office of the Attorney General to plead guilty, pay the amount stolen, as well as restitution. Per the agreement, he was to pay an amount of 30 million Ghana cedis by December the 1st, 2022, which had already been paid. He will then have to pay the remaining 60 million Ghana cedis in 3 installments of 20 million Ghana cedis each. Point is, he is not meeting his obligations. But, Doc, we all saw this coming, didn't we? We spoke about it and the possibility, the glaring possibility of a default. But the Attorney General defended this and went ahead with it. Now, Ghana is having its fingers burnt. Your reaction?
Oh, I think that the Attorney General knows what to do. So we will not waste my time on
And
this.
he started the process.
Yeah, if a court gives an order, they know how to execute the order. So this one, I think, is in the bosom of those who know the law. They know how to handle it. But let's move on to the issue of what the science education. I think that is a good thing. Every state that has developed based on science. Look at what science is doing, the miracle. It's amazing. So if your country is lagging behind in terms of scientific education and improvement, obviously you will not be part of the globalized world. You will only be a passenger, but the real movers and shakers of that society, you will not be part. All the things we talk about in life is based on science, medicine, health, education, and what have you. So when emphasis is on science, then it gives me a sigh of relief that we are getting there. But we shouldn't just end there. We should provide the necessary environment to support it, the teaching of science. One of the problems I have found over the years in this country is that in the area of science, you don't tend to have teachers who are qualified to handle it from the basic level up to secondary school level. Anybody who had done little of science is pushed somewhere that, we've seen your transcript, go and do this. Let me give you an example. If you look at the universities that we have in this country,
in fact, Doc, just to interject briefly, it happened to us. You know, once you scored a certain aggregate and all of that, they wanted you to read science. I had to put my foot down and say, I excel in the sciences and mathematics, but it simply wasn't an area I wanted to pursue in terms of a career. So I just to use myself as an example, that was what happened to me as well, and I had to put my foot down.
I have another story to tell, but that's another day. I was a science student from Pufuri Tech.
I see.
People don't know that. I am a proper science student. But I stayed home for 9 years. Just to, later I found my way here. And the story is out there for the world to see. But it tells you that, one, we need people who will counsel people very well. Because yesterday I was talking to a friend and he mentioned my story. He said, so you also went to SecTech and started science, and if you have continued on this, what would have been the story? I said, well, because we all agree that counseling is a problem, and the university is doing very well on that in terms of counseling. But what about secondary school and then the primary school? We need people who will shape their direction, who will point to them as to the path that they should chart. That is critical. I don't know whether the Ghana Education Studies, they have that. But if they don't, I'm sure they will begin to double their effort in that direction. If they have, they need to strengthen that too. We need, not once you are teaching science, you should also strengthen mathematics, because science is driven by mathematics. let's look at even basic education. Who are those teaching mathematics? Once they see your transcript, oh, you did something science or something mathematical, come and teach. There are very few. Look at our universities. Only few people take to mathematics up to the final level. I remember when we were final year students, those who were studying mathematics at Legon, they were about 6. And one of friend Raymond Atafen was the only math student at 400. Can you imagine? So you ask yourself, who are those teaching mathematics in our basic schools and secondary schools? Anybody is just pushed there, apart from those a few who have studied mathematics and science go there. Anybody is pushed there to teach, and that creates a problem. So these things must be looked at critically. And then we make sure that we support the effort by giving them encouragement, awards, and scholarship. That's how you develop science. Once you build a solid base in science, we begin to put in measures to establish small industries, machines, and all that. If you listen, I am one of the people who admire Friend Bombasting so much. Why? He's a man who can sit behind, somewhere and then create things. Right, create things on his own. There was a time he displayed the things that he created in his own home and all that. He was lamenting about the fact that we are not able to produce even simple tools, simple machines, and all that. This is the thing that science education that recently you and I are following news from UST, KNUST, and you see a lot of development that science is making in that. That is the way to go. Let's build a solid base in science and we'll build a solid Ghana.
And I couldn't agree with you more, because no country has developed without an industrializational push, if you can put it that way. That is what we need. Science, we need the know-how. Of course, we need the backing of the system, both the private and the public sector, to get us there. But just to wrap, we have less than a minute left, Doc. The Finder newspaper, Justice Toko News nomination referred to Appointments Committee for consideration. It's reflected in the Ghanaian publisher. But there's also Economy Times. Banks post first loss as nation restructures debt, and uncertainty over IMF's $3 billion ECF. And those are the stories there. Any quick reflections in less than a minute so we can wrap?
Yeah, I am happy that we are getting a new CJ who's a woman. And when women who are qualified are put into such high offices, it gladdens my heart. Then I tell myself that, yes, my country is becoming part of the developed states. Why am I saying that? Women have been denying a lot of opportunities in this country. The story is too clear for me to recount it here. But steps like this, that we know we are not only pushing ladies into those offices, but they qualify. And for me, that is the more important thing. This woman, if you listen to lawyers, is so qualified, so experienced, and a no-nonsense type. This is the type of people who want at the bench, who will call a spade, and then use the law. That's all. So I dove my heart for, and it's my hope and prayer. He goes through the vetting, and then he come and sit as a judge and right the wrongs that we have in our judicial system. Yes.
Well, I can't wait for her, especially on the raiment or attire that lawyers have to use in court. She's had some interesting takes on that in the past. But thank you so much, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. You always make our Wednesday morning. Thank you for always joining us on the AM show. Right. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, of course, he is a political scientist. He's head of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Before we get into sports, and I'm hoping we'll do something on basketball, hopefully something in there. The LA Lakers trouncing the Golden State Warriors at their home, by 117 to 112 points. But the segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they are offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. All you have to do, go to any of their branches. Here in Accra, they are located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. They are in Takrade and Aji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama and Zima. You'd like to call them, I'm sure. These are the numbers you can reach them on. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And that's how we cap off the news review. Up next, well, sports. Do stay.